because they're so deep in outfield prospects that he's just like sort of 4 or 5 guys down in the pecking order, and chances are he'll never, start for him. And then they talked about converting him to a second baseman. Well, they got a bunch of guys there too, and this Wong kid looks awesome. He's going to be starting there for the next 5-6 years. So, and I wasn't really on top of who he was or who their up-and-coming prospects are, but every year you see just big-time players stepping into new roles there for the Cardinals, and they just seem to have a never-ending supply of talent coming up in that system.
Yep, and there's a lot of work to be done, but I am starting. I've said this for the last few years. I'm starting to get that feeling slowly but surely about the Indians farm system, because I'm now not just finding good talent, but I'm finding good talent behind good talent when I look around and I go, man, you got this guy, or this guy may develop before him. We're seeing that with the, talking about the infield prospects, and you got 2-3 guys that are all kind of on the same track there, where everybody was just focused on Lindor, and now it's like, hey, maybe there's some trade possible. One of these guys may develop. No, but I mean, we're seeing some of the outfielders, some of the guys that they got, some of the pitching depth is just now making its way up, and I always like to say it's like a 5-year seeing that, but I'm starting to see enough now that I'm going, man, in 5 years, being one of the worst farm systems in baseball to one of the best, because I do like the way they've really started to build some depth there.
Well, yeah, you're right, and they were down in the lower reaches when after they had traded away a bunch of prospects, traded away a couple first rounders for Ubaldo, but over the last few years they've come back, and like you say, at certain positions in the organization, and I don't know it near as well as a guy like Al, but positions like catcher where they're pretty loaded. I mean, you got a young guy in Gomes, you've got Perez behind him.
You've Perez, got, where are you going to play Perez?
Exactly. Francisco Mejia, and you've got tons of catching prospects coming up behind them. You've got a pretty good situation with your corner outfield prospects, and we talked about the middle infield where it's Ramirez, it's Lindor, it's Eric Gonzalez. You've got some other kids. Middle infield is fairly deep as well. So. Yeah, it's at least at certain positions, and I guess on the 2 infield corner spots, maybe not quite so much, not quite as strong as say catching, corner outfield, and middle infield. But you're right, it's coming, and they've worked their way back up into the middle to slightly above middle of the pack in terms of how the so-called experts rate minor league systems, and so they're working on it, and it's coming. Yeah, I think the best is yet to come.
Absolutely, you guys. Hey, let's segue a little bit, talk some Browns with you real quick. For those of you guys listening, and maybe this is news to you too as well, Dan, but since we've been on the air, Browns have confirmed Phil Taylor. A lot of people wondered what his situation was coming out of the game the other day. He had surgery this morning. He had arthroscopic surgery on his knee this morning. He's going to be out. He is at University Hospital. He's going to be out for at least the next several weeks. They'll update his status 2 or 3 weeks from now as far as getting a timeline on when he comes back to play. But Phil Taylor definitely out for the next few weeks. Had arthroscopic surgery early this morning on that knee that he injured the other day, got hurt in the first half. Now, me personally, I like Phil Taylor. I like Phil Taylor a lot. But that's one of the few positions that the Browns have quality depth. And so that's not, I don't think that's going to hurt them as much. I know that they picked up a guy from the Ravens practice squad the other day, a defensive lineman that came in and worked out. So I know they added a little bit of practice depth there, but they've got game day depth. Armani Bryant's going to continue to force you to play him because he gets in there and gives you some good reps. But Phil Taylor's still a good talent, so you hate to see him out. But luckily, it's at one of the positions where you can afford maybe to take a hit for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know, and I guess that would be a debatable point, certainly, Jerry.
Well, because
the run defense has been so horrible.
I'm talking bodies.
I think maybe underperformance of Phil Taylor and Ataba Rubin and some guys in that middle are partially to blame for that. Certainly, they shoulder part of the blame for it. So yeah, losing Phil Taylor certainly doesn't help what has been a problem area for him. Let's put it that way. Maybe we see some more Kitchen. And certainly Billy Wynn and John Hughes and
Kitchen, Hughes, and Wynn, and Armani Bryant, to me, need more reps. I like those guys. I think Hughes and Kitchen are great run stoppers, and I like those guys. Billy Wynn's banged up too. Now, I don't know if he's going to be out. They're going to update that in the next day or two. He was limited in practice today with a quadricep bruise, so that's usually just a big Charlie horse there on the quad. So I'm assuming that he may play, but we don't know yet. But he was held out. Joe Hayden was limited, which we know with the hip injury as well. So there may be a double whammy there. But like I said, I know the production, and I know where you're saying it doesn't help because of that. But I think that we've seen some differences in even the run defense with some of those other guys that we're talking about that have gotten reps later in the games. I know it's hard to judge because teams' game plans change in the third and fourth quarter from the first half. But we saw such a difference, and we saw a lot more of that depth, some more rotating. I know I saw a lot of Armani Bryant starting to show up in the fourth quarter the other day. So maybe getting, having, some opportunity there opens up these guys that are just missing the game day reps. Because I know preseason is what it is, but if you can get past a blocker pretty quickly and get to a quarterback, I don't care what level we're talking, preseason or regular season, I want to see more of a guy like Armani Bryant.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that has been, we call it disappointing, whatever, about this team this year is what I expected out of Mike Pettin was, balls out, go after the quarterback, just a better pass rush than what we've seen. Mingo has been no-show in terms of, they don't rush him that much. I think the other day they said he only rushed the
not
pass
at all
8
this
times.
year. Yeah,
8 times. Other than that, he was out in coverage, and you've got to be able to do that. He is yet to prove himself on that score, but I thought they would be harassing the quarterbacks a lot more. I thought they'd be blitzing more. I thought they'd be blitzing more DBs, and it's just been their decision and their strategy not to do that. But I think against the Steelers and Roethlisberger, it's all the more important. The one time they beat him a couple of years ago on the Thursday night, they sacked him 8 times. And I heard your caller say earlier it's going to come down to how well the defensive backs play. Well, defensive backs look a lot better when there's heat on the passer, and Roethlisberger's not standing back there picking his teeth before he throws the ball. So, I just think it's going to be a matter of getting after that quarterback. And, Le'Veon Bell's not going to surprise anybody this time around. He hit him in the first game with some unbelievable runs, and he's about 25 pounds lighter than he was a year ago. It looks great. Maybe, like John McMullen says, one of the most improved players in the NFL. At least now we know that in the first quarter, coming in, that he's a guy that you've got to account for, and you've got to slow down that rushing game. Just like Mike Tomlin said this week, that their whole goal is based around not letting Ben Tate average 5.9 yards a carry. That's what Tomlin said when they talked to him about what he was concerned about, and he said, Tate's 5.9 yards per carry average, you gotta cut that down. You can't let that happen. And same holds true for the Browns and Le'Veon Bell. He's a very talented NFL back who's kind of exploded on the scene here, and you've got to contain him. And of course, Antonio Brown has made a career of beating the heck out of the Cleveland Browns. So keeping him in check is if not item 1, it's item 1A on the Browns' defensive priorities.
You brought up Antonio Brown. Let me just tell you, fantasy football fans can feel my pain this week. Antonio Brown's one of those top-shelf starters, and he's one of my receivers, and there's not a chance in hell that I can sit him on the bench. He's one of those guys that plays every week because he's one of your main scorers on your fantasy team. So, unfortunately, I bench most guys that play against the Browns. I say, you know what, I'll sacrifice a couple of points here. I'm not going to sit here and have this. But unfortunately, Antonio Brown is not one that I can afford to bench, especially when I'm afraid of what he may do against the Browns, man. So that's a bad dilemma for me to deal with there, unfortunately. But you're right. And you know what? It's not just getting the pressure on Roethlisberger. It's bringing him down because they were ticking me off when they would get to Locker the other day and he's moving arm tackles here and there and nobody's bringing. I'm like, come on, this isn't even one of the more elite running quarterbacks in the NFL. Nothing against him, but this is Jake Locker here, man, and we're out here having this guy look like the elusive, Michael Vick from the Falcons days, and I'm like, come on,
exactly.
Just tackle the guy.
That's the thing about Roethlisberger, too. I mean, it's not like he's exactly twinkle toes out there in terms of his agility, but the guys like Houdini, when he plays the Browns and escapes what looks like impossible situations and sure sacks and ends up, breaking out, staying up, and finding a receiver down the field, it just is enough to make you crazy when you watch it happen over and over again. I remember, I think last in the opener, I think Kirksey, whiffed on him one time on what looked like was going to be a sure sack, and there were several other times when he escaped what looked like it was going to be, big losses and crucial plays for us, and the guy just comes out of it like David Copperfield, for heaven's sake, so. You're right. Bringing him down is what it's all about. He's a big, strong guy, and I don't know. It's hard to predict that you're going to do better because Roethlisberger just seems to do it continually. That one Thursday night or a couple of years ago being the exception to the rule.
Yep, absolutely. The conspiracy theorists are out. Not just Vashon in the chat room, but I've actually had a couple of other people send me their little messages this week. Joe Hayden, he's not going to go out there for the rematch against Antonio Brown. All of a sudden, he's conveniently banged up this week after he got burnt like toast the first time. And I do get a chuckle out of that. I don't believe it, but it's not just one person's opinion. I have had several people send me that here during the week. But, it is what it is, and it's next man up. And part of me hopes that not playing last week lit a fire under Gabriel and has him ready to go out there and play some ball. Or, excuse me, Gilbert. I don't know what I was thinking. Gilbert. Light a fire under him, because it's one thing, as I've been saying, to have limited reps and to go, okay, this guy's not ready to be out there 80 times a game, but there's a difference between not being out there 80 times and being out there 0 times during the game. I mean, clearly you've dropped off the edge of the coach's confidence, not just a little bit, but that was really telling to me. And then now here, you may have to bounce right back and put him out there.
Yeah, that's true. And I read that, I think it was Pluto, said that he got, 8 snaps on defense, Gilbert, last week.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
Obviously that's almost the same as not playing.
That's what I mean.
Don't know what those situations were. Didn't pay close enough attention on that. But you're
Quan
right.
Williams played those reps.
When you're a 4-12 team and you pick 8th in the draft, that guy better start for you. So far that has not happened. And right now, I've seen about 3 rookie corners in the NFL that I prefer to Justin Gilbert right at the moment. Conventional wisdom being what it was on draft day, they went with the guy that they liked and felt good about. But and I've said it a million times, if I've said it once, a cornerback's the hardest position in team sports to play, NFL corner, I think. And, it takes a while to get good at it. Sometimes a matter of a year or two. But still, you're the 8th pick in the draft. You ought to be able to step in and be the kind of talent that can perform on Sundays in the NFL as a rookie, and so far we haven't seen that. So in that regard, and also with regard to our second first-round draft choice, also not a starter,
yep.
You have to look at the 2014 draft and say, well, it's a B-, it's a C+, it's something on that order, because neither of your first-round picks is starting for you, and you're a 4-12 football team.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you there. Definitely on the first-round picks, absolutely. You can go through and say, oh, well, Batonio. I mean, yeah, the jury's still out on this draft as a whole, but I agree with you, man. I mean, to have 2, and that's what's funny, too, is all the talk before the draft of, 2 first-round picks to add an influx of high-level talent right off the bat. And you've got a cornerback who has not yet been able to make an impact, and a quarterback who can't get on the football field, man. And that was one of my...
And so, yeah, you might love Batonio and the running back,
Kirksey,
and
I like Kirksey,
everybody
I like
else
the
on
running back,
on your draft, and maybe you think you got Pierre Desir you took with a 5th-round pick who's not playing, and some other guys. So right now you're not getting great contributions from any of the players you drafted, other than West and Batonio. You did get one starter, Batonio, out of that draft so far, and West has capability to be a frontline player, and obviously, so you just need Gilbert to come around and learn the position and get some confidence and start being the corner that you think he is, and that can't happen soon enough.
And that, going back to, Manziel, that's what takes me back to, forget all the gaga about the pick of him. That was one of the biggest problems with me, was if if you know what you've got and you're confident in what you've got with Brian Hoyer, which, obviously hindsight now they say they were, but by what they did in the draft, they obviously were not, because they went with a quarterback in the first round. But that was my biggest problem. Wasn't just